be recording to the cloud as well. Okay, welcome everybody. Hey, I think we're good to go on Facebook Live and on Zoom. This is Dr. Jesse Brown here, the holistic guru to some of you. And we're going to be talking about the respiratory system. So I'm going to start this off a little bit with a story or two. And because there are a lot of people who don't really know my background. I've shared some things and I'll repeat for some of you, and for some of you, it'll be new information. For those who know of me as being the healthy person, the marathon runner, and all that, there's a story behind that. Okay. And it's basically that longevity didn't run in my family. Uh, I only knew one grandparent growing up. My mother's mother passed away before my mother was 6 months old. My father's parents were dead before he was 17, both of them. His mother about age of 3, and his father had passed away by the time he was 17. Um, so I've only known one grandparent. That was my mother's father. Okay. Didn't know him very well. We weren't very close, not far in proximity, but didn't know him very well. He passed away at 86 after his second bout with colon cancer. So it's not that, necessarily we have the strongest uh, stock or longevity in the family. Um, I say the majority of the ailments in my family are as a diet of are as a result of diet and lifestyle, like so many of us in the African American community. Right. My interest started in my teens. I originally had tonsillitis and had surgery for my tonsils, my adenoids, had respiratory problems coming up from age 10. And then when I was 17, um, my system shut down, my immune system shut down. I had infectious mononucleosis. I was in senior year of my of high school, and I had a really rough time at it. I had a hard time breathing through my nose and my mouth. I think it started off with they say the cold or flu, and then went to mono, and then I ended up having German measles. I was sick for a month. I was shut down and incapacitated for a month at home. And I think it was about that time it really got my attention. I wondered, was on the track team and, and did, and on the swim team at Detroit Pershing for a short time. I thought I was in pretty good shape. But when I got that sick, I really wondered, and when you're in bed, when I was in bed, having a hard time breathing out of my nose and my mouth, losing weight, and my immune system just not functioning, I think that was when I made one of those pacts with God that, if I came through this, I would do better. It got my attention. I had a wake up around that time, and I started looking at things. I started looking at the different religions and what we call dietary laws, and I found out that whether you're looking at Christianity or Judaism, you're looking at pretty much, I'll say, the major religions. All of them had dietary laws, dietary practices. You eat this, you don't eat that. And there were reasons behind that. Now, for the most part, in church, they don't really talk about that. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about it much. And, in a lot of our Baptist churches and a lot of African American churches, dietary law, what is that? They may go on the Daniel fast once a year. That's more of a new thing. But when I was coming up, there wasn't, they didn't say don't have dairy, don't have pork, and those things. We eat pretty much anything. And being people that came from the South, my father came from the South, and my grandparents and others, whether it be Georgia, South Carolina, other places, they ate like Southern people did, and they ate this the traditional slave food diet, as we'll call it, as well. Okay, that's pretty much how I came up, and how we ate coming up. But at that time, in my late teens, and then going as I was preparing and then going to college, I learned more about um, not eating pork and not eating things that came from the the waters that didn't have fins and scales and this and that. I just paid closer attention to that. And the Muslims, the Nation of Islam and Muslim were very vocal about diet as well. And Dick Gregory was a prominent person as too. And so for those people who know about Dick Gregory and his legacy, he was probably the person who really put vegetarianism into the African American community, or introduced that, or really advocated for that through his book, um, Cooking with Mother Nature, for folks that eat. Title is off a little bit there. I think it was Cooking with Mother Nature, but anyway, it was by Dick Gregory. I'm sure it's still available probably in some of the older bookstores. But he basically had a guide on, talking about eating, and he was a comedian. He was very well paid, who got into social activism and got into health. And he went from drinking a lot of liquor and smoking and doing pretty much everything to vegetarian, running across the country and doing a lot in terms of, so again, advocacy for particularly African Americans. Okay. And he was a great influence on me, major influence on me. I used to travel to see Dick Gregory and to hear what he had to say. It was profound. He talked about political, social things of the time. So those were some things that influenced me. One, getting, the history in my family, and not saying um, the greatest examples of health. Two, getting sick at 17. And then three, hearing Dick Gregory, hearing people from the Nation of Islam, hearing others talking about health and wellness. And I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. And so there was a different type of consciousness around that time, and we were challenging things. So that's some information on my background and kind of what propelled me into that. And then I started studying. So once I completed my undergraduate degree from Eastern Michigan University, I started the next year. That was 1981. I started studying, took class here and there, and then just kind of that really kind of set me on more of a formal path until I started Detroit Holistic Center in 1987 and operated that as a clinic from 87 to 2020 for over 32 years. So mine was a path that was kind of unique to me, but many of my colleagues also, and people in holistic health in particular, I'd say, oftentimes had some type of health bout, something that they personally experienced that kind of set them on a path. Either they are looking at what happened in their family history, or something happened with them personally. And over the years, and some of you know, and some of you don't, I brought a lot of people to Detroit, and through the center, Detroit Holistic Center, and through the Holistic Training Institute, which is a state license school, so that I could share what I learned. A lot of what I learned, happened because I traveled, I explored, I found information wherever I could. So I'll say my studies continue still until this day. Even as I teach, I learn and I read and I research more. And there's a lot of confusing information out there. There's a lot of conflicting information out there as well. So my goal is to give you information that has integrity, that has some science, that has some backing behind it, and is based on my experience, over 32 years of clinical experience, and plus, working with people and doing a number of different things. And like going to a conference, I'll be at a conference called the Natural Products Expo West in Anaheim, California, and I'll be there next week. I'm leaving shortly, and I'll be there for a time with people who are behind the research on the products, and there'll be probably close to 70,000 or so people there who are involved in the industry. A number of speakers I'll be interviewing. I've gone as press. So my goal has been to utilize the access and the background that in the influence that I have in and gather that and then bring it back home, bring it back to Detroit and bring it back or take it to wherever I can because our community is suffering. The health disparities are too high. The rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancers, all types of ailments are disproportionately high in the African American community, and they shouldn't be. Okay. But it's a matter of choice. It's not genetics. It's a matter of the things that we're doing. Those are the determinants of health. So again, I want to bring the information, but also bring some activity, I want to say. And that is uh, to get people involved. So it's one thing that, some people say it's knowledge is power. No, it's not. Okay. Applied knowledge can be powerful because you can know a thing, you can have heard of a thing or read about a thing, but if you don't apply it, then it has no value. I mean, that's or very little value. A library has no power unless you go in there, you read the books, and you take that and then you apply that. So whatever we do. So I want to see more application. So through the center, we're doing more application, and through the training institute, I want to encourage and teach and share with people so they can help other people and to be active in terms of their wellness. The mission is training a healer in every home. I believe the answer is not within our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is spending more money than any other quote unquote civilized nation, but we don't have the highest or the best state of health. How is that going to happen? It's going to happen like the way that I want to say that many of us grew up that came from the South, and that is because someone loved us enough to take care of us. Now, as many challenges there were in amongst or with health in my family, my mother did know this. Okay, she did know about castor oil, cod liver oil, enemas, those types of things, and those things that came from the South. And oftentimes people who did not have access to healthcare, who could not go to the hospitals, who had to rely on or did rely on the natural remedies and what their parents and grandparents or aunts and whoever in their lives taught them. Those are the practices that we employed for thousands of years. That's our earliest form of medicine. And for me, training healers in every home means that that's where we have to go back to. Is it when people understand what to do for themselves, their loved ones, and we got a strong family unit that knows how to eat, knows about herbs, knows what to do, change the seasons, those type of things. We're going to manage our healthcare much better than any other institution can. Okay, our doctors, our hospitals, they don't take the time. It's too expensive, and they don't take the time. I was reading something recently about a particular herb and its purported benefits and some remedies and tonics and such. And one of the things I noticed in there is they were describing how to use and how to do certain things. And I was thinking back on what my mother would do. My mother was really engaged in our healing. Okay. Some of that probably was because she lost her mother so early and she took the time to kind of to learn some things, to pay attention, to listen to her aunts and grandmother, whoever did teach her. And because she loved us. Okay. And those are some things you can't duplicate in a hospital setting. So when I was looking at these instructions and this information, it was I noticed that there it's really engaging what they were describing, and it requires someone to take the time and attention in order to do these things. Okay. So again, you're not at the doctor's office very long, and the longest you might be at a hospital, they're monitoring the prodding and testing and poking, or you're getting surgery or something. And again, that time is much shorter than what it used to be. But when you're at home and someone's paying attention to your care, then they are paying attention to are you getting fluids? Are you eating? Um, how are you feeling? My mother would take our temperature and again give us enemas and remedies and those types of things. Just monitor that whole thing. And she'd keep in touch with the doctor. She could call the doctor's office back then anyway, and let them know what's going on. But it takes someone, at least one person, to be engaged, and then also to pass those things along. There's no care that we're going to get that's going to be like our mother's care or our aunts or someone who really loves, nurtures, and pays attention to you. Okay, they know our disposition. They know what we need. They know what's going on. And I believe that when people understand the fundamentals of health, then we'll have a much more effective health care system instead of sick care system like we have today. Okay, I believe that's the answer. And we find that even third world countries and so many other places that do not spend the amount of money that we do on healthcare, they have a better, level of health. They are, they live longer in many cases, don't have many of the chronic ailments that we have, and it takes a longer period of time before people even get sick. And then some of the things I mentioned, some of the studies from Uganda and West Africa and different places, on the continent of Africa, you find that people employing indigenous practices are a plant-based diet, and what we traditionally, would eat in the villages and things like that, we would shun here, have a much higher level of wellness and less incidences of chronic ailments, heart disease, cancers, etc. Okay, I'll talk about more about that, as we go along in subsequent calls and in some of the courses. But it's just fascinating. I believe the answer is in the home. Okay, a lot of the answers should be in our cupboards. A lot of the answers should be in our foods, in the herbs and the things that we take and what we do for ourselves. Okay? And so when you have someone who's intentional and attentional, miracles can happen. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share some information on the the respiratory system. So we're going to talk about a bit about sinus problems. Approximately 40% of people have sinus problems, and then you have 5,500 people who die every year from asthma alone. So respiratory. So we're talking about the respiratory system, ailments of the respiratory system, and what we can do to avoid problems or even address, these conditions when they occur. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. And there will be a portion here where I will take questions. And there's something else. For those people who are in the room, and I mean by that I mean on Zoom, I'm gonna invite you to take our poll that I will be launching shortly, because I want to know what's going on with you and what we can do to, and get some feedback in regards to your respiratory condition, etc. So someone's gonna have to remind me to launch that poll. I'm not seeing it right away. And I don't know if one of my team members can launch it, but if one of you can launch the poll, please do. And then let me know in chat if that happens. Okay. Or when that happens, okay, here we go. Perfect. Perfect. So there are just 12 questions. And again, that's for informational purposes, and it is confidential. I don't share that with anybody, and that's just to give us some feedback. Okay. So this is entitled Breath of Life. A holistic approach to respiratory wellness. Common respiratory ailments are asthma, and you'll be familiar with this, chronic condition causing inflammation and narrowing in the airways, leading to wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing. And if it is not treated, if it is not managed, it can result in death. Over 5,500 deaths a year just from asthma. And there are a number of different reasons for this, as well as the bronchitis, inflammation of the bronchial tubes, emphysema, again, shortness of breath. All these things are respiratory ailments. So if we understand the system and not just look at the ailment and address the health of the systems of the body, then we can better manage our personal health and that of others. And we'll understand when we're negotiating things with the doctor or we're talking with people in the healthcare system. Okay. Even sinusitis, which is very common. About 40% of people have problems with their sinuses, and kind of have a reputation. I know people are here from different parts of the country, but a lot of people say, oh, if you live in Michigan, you're going to have problems with your sinuses. Well, some of it is climatic and is influenced by our climate, but it's also environmental. It's the air, it's the food, it's the water. It's when especially people of color and in underserved communities, if we're in toxic environments, guess what? Our body's responding to that. Okay. We're exposed to more toxins in a year than our grandparents were in their entire lifetimes. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. We're exposed to more toxins in 1 year than our grandparents were in their entire lifetimes. It's just that we don't see it. You know, when you look outside, it looks like a clear day. Fly in and out of a major city, and you'll see the level of pollution and toxicity, and toxins that are there in what I call motor cities or in industrialized cities. That's a lot of it. And that's causing sinus problems, that's causing asthma, emphysema, many of these different conditions there. So we need to do something about that. If we can't do something about the external environment, we can do something about the internal environment. Okay. And then a medical approach. Typically, bronchodilators, steroids, inhalers, antibiotics manage the symptoms, but they don't really get to the root of the problem. They don't detoxify. They don't, and they can have, they all have side effects actually, and they all have what you call unintended or negative side effects. The pharmaceutical interventions have limitations. They can cause dependency. Sometimes some people can't breathe without any inhalers or these steroids and such. Steroids, as you may know, cause people to, weight gain and affect the kidneys and liver, etc. Okay, so that the medical approach is what's been employed for the most part. But we're looking for a lot of people are looking for another way. I believe people on the call are looking for another way. There are some alternative approaches to respiratory wellness, emphasizing the use of non-pharmaceutical interventions, such as herbs. So we look at diet first typically and find out what's happening, what a person may be allergic to. So sometimes just rotating certain foods out of the diet will reap great results. We know some of the most common offenders are dairy and white flour products. So your milk, your cheese, your cottage cheese, your ice cream, things that people love, and it oftentimes people do every day. Okay. I've known a number of people. At the end of the day, they're going to have some ice cream. They're going to have, or they're having milk every day. They're having it in their cereal. They're something that's there. And most people of color do have lactose intolerance or do not tolerate dairy. We're not little cows, so we don't need dairy. So you find something different. So you look at some of the common offenders in terms of diet. That's one. That's step one, is to try to get rid of whatever is offending us first, and then you start incorporating some other things as well. And that is, so for example, the dietary changes would also include putting things in the diet that are good for the respiratory system. So that's where your antibiotic foods, that's where your garlic and your onions and foods that help your respiratory system, your cayenne and some others. I'm going to get to that. Some herbs that are good for moving the mucus out of the body, not suppressing it, not drying it up. Like when they say that, oh, you take this, it's going to dry up the mucus. Dry it up where? If it goes in your body, if it's in your body and it goes in your body, what is it drying up to? So there are many people in the field that I admire, know and admire, Dr. Michael Greger and many others that will talk about using a plant-based and or an herbal approach to health and wellness. So again, foods to avoid, minimize dairy products, processed foods. And that means that anything that's it didn't come pretty much directly from the ground and to your table. Where of course you can, some things you cook or prepare, but things that come from box, a can, is gone through one, two, three, four, sometimes several levels of processing, are typically mucus forming, create too much acidity in the body, are hard for the body to break down, include a lot of fillers, a lot of chemicals in there that cause the body to have a reaction. Okay. And so what do? Have anti-inflammatory foods, have fruits and vegetables and whole grains, nuts, seeds, those types of things should comprise the majority of our diet. Okay. And so when that happens, then we see great results. Then we see these lung conditions and many other conditions balance out and go away. Someone was asked, they said, what did our grandparents call organic foods? Okay. They were just foods. It was organic. We didn't typically, coming from those folks coming from the South, typically use natural products in order to fertilize the soil and didn't put chemicals and things on there. That's something that's evolved and has changed over time. So you get the cleanest food as you can. I'm not going to say just eat organic. Your time, your financial commitment, there's some other things that are going to help to determine that. Get the least processed foods you can, get more variety, get the most variety that you can in terms of color and variety of vegetables and things. Most people, especially people that African American descent, eat the same things over and over and over again. So no wonder we have the same conditions, right? It's not genetic. It's our food choices. Here are some of the things we can do in terms of the herbs for respiratory health. Ginger. Now, I'm going to emphasize that. Now, I grew up having ginger ale, so that's one of the things they would do. It was teas and hot toddies and different formulas that they would have. When ginger ale was first introduced and ginger drinks were first introduced, they actually had ginger in it. If you look at ginger ale and many of these beverages today, there's no ginger in it. Ginger itself, the herb ginger, is an herb and it is beneficial for the digestive system. Many of the problems that deal with the respiratory system come from the gut or the digestive system. So the respiratory system and the digestive system in what they call traditional Chinese medicine are paired organs. If you got problems with the digestive system, it's going to impact the respiratory system. Got problems with the respiratory system, it's going to be reflected in the digestive system as well. But ginger is one. Turmeric, great anti-inflammatory. You'll probably hear me talk about that more and more. Licorice root, those are some things that are anti-inflammatory. And if you can read this is mucolytic properties, and that's mucus moving. So there's a different philosophy holistically than it is medically. Medically, many times they'll say, "Oh, we're going to give you this, and it's going to address this symptom that you're having." Okay, it's going to suppress a symptom. Okay, and holistically and traditionally, we would take herbs that would move things out of the body. So you may notice a much different approach, and you may notice that. So, for example, mullein is one good herb for the respiratory system as well. But for example, with lobelia, which has got a very long-standing reputation as being something that's great for the respiratory system as well. One of the things that will happen is people may throw up and have all kind of mucus coming up using lobelia. Now, some people will attribute that to and say, "Oh, I'm getting sick," and they don't feel well behind that. But sometimes that's just what has to happen. Sometimes it got to get ugly before it gets better. Sometimes the answer is for there to be some throwing up or the mucus to come out instead of again being suppressed in the system. Okay, so you may notice a different reaction and response. Okay, it may take a longer time before a person is for a person to come through this system. Okay, utilizing a holistic method. There's two reasons that I've identified, three reasons at least that I've identified where medically they don't tell us nutritional and or herbal remedies for addressing ailments. One is they don't know. Most medical schools do not have, but perhaps an elective in nutrition. So they don't study herbs, they study drugs, they study medical procedures, expert at that, great, very good at that. Don't study the other, so you can't teach what you don't know. That's one. Two is they don't believe that people are going to do it. Okay. Many times, and I've even seen this myself. Many times, I can make a recommendation or a medical doctor make a recommendation, and it could be a good recommendation. You need to stop doing this and that or whatever. And many people don't comply. They don't do it. So so sometimes when the majority of the people are not doing it anyway, they say, what the heck? I might as well write the prescription. That's the second reason. The third reason is because if these remedies are properly applied, if the person really got the amount of water and tonics and really went through a holistic protocol, it's time intensive. It's really intentional. It requires somebody to be there and to help with that process. I mean, to give us enemas and hot baths and wrap us up in hot tub and all these different things. One, to learn these things, and then two, to apply it and then monitor it and see and be there till the fever broke and all that. Many people they don't do that today. Okay, so it is time intensive, and it could very well be a belief in the medical system that people aren't going to do that anyway. Okay, so but if you really understand, it's not just, and we need to get away from a lot of these shortcuts and short approaches and thinking, oh, all I have to do is take this one thing and it's going to clear everything out of me. No, you need to take and understand your body just as much, if not more than you do your car, your home, and other things that you care for, your animals. You need not only to get checked out to see if your brain is working, your heart is beating and all that, but take the time to do some seasonal cleansing, to take some time just as nature changes to make some adjustments in terms of our diet and those things as well, especially if they're chronic ailments or there's some things that quote unquote run in the family. Now, tonics and flushes. There are some great tonics and flushes. So I say ideally, we want to live a lifestyle that's going to build the immune system and it's going to cause us to be more resistant so we don't have the reaction. But when we do, sometimes using steam inhalation with things like eucalyptus oil, and it's something that we teach about in the in essential oils class, or saline nasal rinses. One of the best things that you can do, sometimes the best, least expensive, and most effective things that we can do is use some salt water. So, you have a little saline or a salt in water and flush the sinuses with that. and do that when there's some irritation, when there's sneezing, an early onset of a cold or something going on there. Really inexpensive. You don't have to get a drug, get a prescription, get a drug. They even have some saline solutions that they have that they some of these companies are coming out with as well. But these are some things that we would do and make it home. Um, Steams, again, you can have essential oil and heat up some water and breathe that. Other times, in addition to the eucalyptus, lemons, citrus fruits, and there's some other things that you can breathe that will help. Now, guess what? I'm gonna dispel a misconception out here. Some people think that the hot steam, is going to get in there, is going to get in there um and I want to say kill something because of the heat itself. No, the steam is going to be warm, but it's not going to be so hot. Um, or go in these sinus passages so hot that it's going to destroy it, like boiling, um, boiling and killing germs and bacteria, etc. You're breathing the steam. You're not burning your passages. You're hydrating your sinuses more. You're drinking more water so that the mucus thins, and you're facilitating that with herbs and oils to help to soothe the sinus passages and or liquefy and move things along. Okay. You're not trying to get the water so hot or breathe in the water so hot that it burns your sinus passages. Okay. I want to, because I've heard some people say some really interesting things, that just aren't true and could potentially be dangerous. Get the steam in, but don't burn yourself. Don't burn your face. Don't burn your sinus passages. You're not trying to get it inside at 100 plus degrees. Okay, staying hydrated is crucial for maintaining optimal respiratory function. And so when back in the day when they said drink plenty of fluids, get plenty of rest, and sometimes even have a lighter diet, those things still hold true today. Supplements for the respiratory health. Vitamin C, vitally important. So we can get vitamin C a couple of different ways. One, your lemons, oranges, citrus fruits, those types of things that are high in vitamin C. You even have, your carrots and other things that are high in vitamin C, and um, um, and very good for building your body and your body's reserves up. Vitamin A is very important as well. I would say probably even more important than vitamin C in terms of your respiratory health and your immune system health. Quercetin, important. Omega-3 fatty acids are helpful as well for their lubricating, for the immune health, for their as well. And then probiotics. We can get probiotics in foods, and we can get probiotics in supplements as well. Now, some other things that are essential, and in addition to our diet and our herbal regimen, regular exercise. The heart pumps blood, but movement moves the lymphatic system. So there's nothing like walking, jogging, I'm a runner, cycling, getting out. Now we say in the fresh air, as fresh as it is. And many times better to be outside than inside. Sometimes we have very toxic home environments with all the chemicals and the carpeting and things that are the inside. So getting outside, regular physical activity, where your heart and your lungs are being utilized, where your heart rate is going up and your breathing is getting deeper and fuller. And if you cough a little bit or something and they cause your lungs expand, probably good, because you need that in order for your lymphatic fluid to flow. Clean indoor environment, I kind of referred to this about our they're the carpets, the paints, the chemicals that we use in cleaning, the things that we put on our bodies can exacerbate and cause problems. Sometimes you're allergic to your perfume, okay, or your body lotions and those things as well. So be very careful about the things that you put on your body as well as in your body. And then I want to encourage everybody to embrace natural remedies. Here's the thing, is that more and more, especially as we understand the importance of the environment, we understand our role as caretakers of the earth. The ideal formula for me is this, is that we want to solve problems for people in ways that are good for the planet, that honor the planet and do the least harm to the planet, that are principled, okay, that are effective, and that we can pass along as well. Okay. When my mother used castor oil, cod liver oil, and those types of things, many times they are low cost, and many times there were things that you could, that she made from common things that were found in the kitchen in our home environment. Okay, she knew how to make these things. Today, people aren't being taught that so much. You don't come up learning that. It's not taught in schools. But embracing natural remedies means that we're doing good for people, and we're also doing good for the planet, causing the least waste. Whenever someone takes a chemical, if you take a drug, it's not just impacting your body, it's impacting the environment. All the things they have to do in order to create that drug, and it goes into our water, it goes into the land, into landfills, and it's in the air. It's causing just more of a toxic environment that undermines the health of the planet, people, and all its inhabitants, all the animals and and living things, including the microbacteria and things that are in the soil. So the more we embrace natural remedies and these natural methods, the better for everybody. I encourage you to see your healthcare provider, and there are some who are on board with plant-based and doing things naturally, and you doing things for yourself. And if not, and that's what you want them to do, then find another healthcare provider. But do get your blood pressure, get your blood sugar, and these things measured. Utilize science for what you can. Okay. What I do is I take a natural approach, and I recommend people take a natural approach, especially for those things that are diet and lifestyle related, that are a result of the choices that we make. Okay. So the again, the okay, for those people who are in the Zoom room, I want to ask all of you, want to take the survey and participate in the survey. It helps me. It helps me to formulate these and to know where people are at and what's going on and how to help you. It helps me to help you. For those people who are on Facebook, then if you got questions, I've got a team of people who are monitoring the questions on the page, so that they can feed that back to me, because we're going to have a Q&A portion there as well. If you do want to join us on Zoom, we'll for the time that we have remaining, there's a link that will be provided that one of my team will provide for you on Facebook. So if you want to, again, directly interact or be here with us, participate in the poll or the discussion. I want to thank everybody for being here and for participating. There's a lot of things you could do with your time. I trust that what I share will be valuable to you. I want to see more. I believe we need more healers in every home in several different aspects. I'll do some videos and some things on that'll be available on YouTube or even in these calls as we go forward. Because there's there's very little that we can overcome if we really set our minds to it. And if you've got hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of people who are of the same consciousness, it's going to happen. Okay? I want to reflect on someone that was also a great influence. I never met him, only read about him. George Washington Carver. You may be familiar with him, and you probably know about his work and his inventions with the peanut, soybean, and sweet potato. Okay, we don't always know why he came up with what they said probably 300 different um, uh, inventions or products from those substances. Okay, one, at the time of the Industrial Revolution, cotton was king. Cotton was being used for clothing and textiles and all types of things, and it was a cash crop. It was the number one cash crop. The problem with cotton was it was destroying the soil. You could grow cotton, but the land would be destroyed, robs all its nutrients. Peanut, soybean, and sweet potato were soil rejuvenators. And so, but the farmers said, we can't make any money with peanut, soybean, and sweet potatoes. So when he came up with these 300 different ways of making these cash crops and making these profitable, they were able to make some transition and get away from just depending on cotton. Cotton was the crack and the heroin of the day. Okay, I mean it had functional use and people weren't using it, of course, abusing it that way, but it was taking without giving back. Okay, it was causing a problem with the environment that peanut, soybean, and sweet potatoes could help to resolve. Today, we need to do the same thing, is that we need to replace some of the things that are being produced with other things that are natural substances that are going to give back to the environment, that again are going to be good for people, solve problems, and be good for the planet as well. Okay. I'm going to make the announcement now. I'll be going to California to